Welcome once again to the Guy Who Knows a Guy podcast. I am your host, Michael Whitehouse, the guy who knows a guy. And we have with us today Dr. Jeremy Weisz. Is it Weisz or Weisz?
Weisz.
Weisz. Dr.
Yes.
Jeremy Weisz. Yeah, I was within two.
Wise is good. I mean,
Okay.
that's
The,
complimentary also.
the very wise Dr. Jeremy Weisz. So, who is Dr. Jeremy Weisz? Well, he's been featured. He's been featuring top entrepreneurs with video interviews since 2008 that include founders and CEOs of Pixar, P90X, Atari, Einstein Bagels, Mattel, Kettle Chips, RX Bars, Big League Chew, the Orlando Magic, and many more on InspiredInsider.com. He runs Rise25, where they help B2B businesses connect to their Dream 200 clients, referral partners, and get ROI using a podcast. They eliminate 99% of the work and make sure that their clients get the ROI. Rise25 is an easy button for them to launch and run their podcast. So, welcome, Dr. Jeremy Weisz, to the show.
Thanks for having me, Michael.
All right,
Appreciate it.
so it sounds like you have met quite a few interesting people over your travels, and going back to 2008. That's back when you were still using like lithographs and podcasts were on like sheets of glass, right?
I had to get people to download Skype on their computer if they didn't know how to use it, and I was doing Skype video interviews at the time.
Wow.
There was no Zoom at the time, so
Back in the ancient days. And then you had to put coal into the furnace to power the computer.
exactly.
Yeah. 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 So tell me about some of that journey well, let's start with the end. That's what hooks people's attention. So what is it you do now that really sets you apart? Because there's a lot of people who do podcasting things. What is it that you've learned in 17 years that really like is the secret sauce for the work you do?
Yeah, I mean, and Michael, you know this, for me, the number one thing in my life is relationships. So I'm always looking at ways to give to my relationships. And so when I look at my life and my business, which intermingle obviously with my relationships and the people I do business with, because we do business with the people we know, like, and trust, really I'm looking at all the ways I can give to someone, right? And so for me, I've seen no better way than profiling the people I admire and sharing with the world what they're working on a podcast, right? That's what we're doing right now.
Yep.
Okay. And there's other things I do, obviously. So we started sending gifts to our clients, our partners, some of our guests, other people in our universe. And so as we were doing that people were asking us to help them do that for them. So what I like to say is, like, the things that we do help people build amazing relationships. So it could be launching and running their podcast. That could be setting up a specific gift program campaign to send like multiple gifts over years to their best relationships and those type of things. So, but yeah, I mean, the strategy is the key. Because you mentioned, like, what's the thing that makes people stop podcasting, right? The questions I get, you may get this too. What mic do I use? What technology do I use? How do I get downloads and subscribers? And I'm like, all that's fine. We can answer that in like 10 seconds. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I have a USB mic here, a Blue Yeti. There's an ATR 2100 over there. We're using Zoom right now. You can use any software that you use for meetings. But the key for me is really identifying who are the best relationships I want to continually give to. And that's like when you said the Dream 200, some people think of it just as clients, but I think of it as strategic partners, referral partners, big
Yep.
authorities in the space. And it's really broader than just clients, right? And so, what are the things, identifying that Dream 200? And in one of my favorite books, Give and Take by Adam Grant, and he talks about in there, there's givers, takers, and matchers, and the most successful people are givers, and the least successful people are givers. And so, what I realized is, I make probably 5 to over 20 introductions a day, depending on the day, to other people. And what I realized is, well, if I spent my time when I read that book, if I continuously give to takers, it's just not a fun experience.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And when I give to givers, like people give to me, I'm a natural giver. So like I want to help regardless, but I want to help even more. People are helping me. So I love thinking about that and just giving to givers, right?
Yeah.
And not expecting anything in return. By the way, one of my favorite, another favorite book, Brian Kurtz wrote Over Deliver, and he talks about 100-0, meaning just give 100%,
Mm-hmm.
don't expect anything in return, and I don't. But the key for me is like giving to the right people. So
Yep.
I'm not expecting anything, but I know good things will happen, good karma or whatever you want to call it. So it's really focusing in on that strategy because people didn't quit because of the mic or because of the software or they quit because they couldn't get ROI.
Yeah.
And ROI for me leads back to giving to that dream list of people that makes sense to give to.
Yeah. That's yeah, some really, really good points you brought up there. One of the things I teach when I teach networking is the idea: don't go in the room asking for your customer. Well, first off, don't go into the room looking for your customer. But then don't go even asking for the customer. Go in asking for the strategic partner. Because why would you ask for a referral to one customer when you can ask for the person who can refer you to 100 customers? And most people aren't there. Well, most people are thinking, I can help you to do the thing. Like, no, you can't help me. I'm not here to buy your thing. I'm here to connect you to the guy who can connect you to 100 of the people who can do your thing.
That's
So
a good
really,
point. And
yeah.
like we help people, you know, one on one kind of map this out, their dream list. And when I'm thinking of it, we kind of categorize it into warm and cold. And people always want, Michael, you probably know this, the coldest of cold. They're like, oh, they want the new exciting relationship that they don't
Mm-hmm.
have yet. And when I think about cold relationships, I mean, people are one, I think, a lot of times neglecting the people who already know, like, and trust them. And
Yep.
so when I think of 80/20, one of my favorite books, Perry Marshall's 80/20 Sales and Marketing, the 20%, like it's 80% of the results, are the people that already know, like, and trust us.
Mm-hmm.
But putting that aside for a second, thinking of the coldest of cold, like you mentioned, going into a room or thinking of that dream 200 list, I think of as who are those, like you said, reservoir of customers or clients, or even there's referral partners to referral partners sometimes in
Mm-hmm.
industry. And so I think of practice management groups in industry. I think of trade associations in industry. I think of conferences in industry. I think of software in industry. Again, as long as that person's company is not like this exact same as yours, and speakers and authors in the industry. So all those can be really the reservoir when you think of it in that specific niche, right? And I was talking with a financial advisor. We were taking someone through this process. And the financial advisor I was like, well, who's your ideal client, right? And they're like, anyone with money. I'm like, well, that's not really a niche. So we kind of identify their top, whatever, 15 clients. And then we discovered there was a larger percentage than others of dentists. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, cool, let's explore that. And like you said, what are the dental? Once you have that niche, it became clearer. Okay, dental trade associations, practice management groups, dental conferences, dental
Mm-hmm.
software. That was much easier to go in and identify that with that niche.
Yeah. And the niche thing is interesting because yeah, oftentimes people are like, anyone with money. Be like, okay, so a billionaire, Elon Musk, Richard Branson. Well, no, I can't handle that level because that's like a different type of money. Oh, okay. Well, I know a landlord who owns a bunch of property. No, I don't do much in real estate. Well, I know, like, and you start giving people who fit, kind
Right.
of to
They start
be like,
eliminating it with the
anyone with
questions.
money? Well, and how much? Like, I saw a bum on the street, someone just handed him $20. He's got money now. Is he your client? Oh, that's not enough money. Well, he has money. So, zeroing that in when you realize it's not only too broad, it's not even their niche. Because they're thinking it's this, but it's only because the chiropractor, anyone with a spine. Well, no, the person with a spine who has no health problems, maybe you can help them, but they don't want your help.
They're
Um,
definitely less likely. If there's not a
yeah,
pain point, they're definitely less likely for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. So that's a really good point. And another thing you talked about was the gift giving and whatnot. And I think sometimes people think that like hiring a company to manage sending gifts and customer appreciation and relationship whatnot is cheating or disingenuous, or but that's because it comes from this idea, this time when you'd have 25 or maybe 50 good connections and you would naturally think of them. And that doesn't necessarily work in our current world. You need to know more than 25, 50 people. And so anyone, now you don't want to be sending out the generic, I have a lot of people I know who you send out cards, and I'll get a card every time something happens. I'm like, oh, look, another card from Bob. Yes, Bob, I remember you send out cards. Thanks, Bob. But at the same time, sending those things out, even if I know they came from a third party, there's still the effort was made to send that appreciation. And they send me the card. I'm like, that's cool. I like the brownies better.
Well,
Uh,
you bring up a good point, and people have different philosophies around gifting. My philosophy is, well, I like to give stuff that I like to receive,
yeah.
obviously. And so we're not saying swag on a pen because that gets tossed out, or some, the logo of the company. And it's totally, by the way, everything in the gift is for with the in the company's name, and from the stationery on it to
Hmm.
the on the box. But you know, the point you're making is like I looked at solutions out there, right? Even with I like getting food. Like, okay, even though some people, Michael would not recommend sending food because they eat it and it's done. But my philosophy is just sending food, a lot of different things over a period of time. So they keep
Hmm.
getting food items. Like you mentioned brownies. Like who doesn't want like, ugh, a brown? I mean, maybe people who are being healthy, like I'm healthy, but so maybe I'll give it to like my kids
Yeah.
or something. So like I
But
don't
you're
want
gonna
to eat the
give it to someone.
brownie.
You're not.
But yeah, for
It's
sure.
not
It's
going
not
straight in
gonna
the
go
trash.
in
Be
the
like,
it's
oh,
not
I
gonna
wish I
go
could
in the
eat this,
trash.
but
Like, ugh, a delicious chocolate chip cookie. Let's throw it in the trash. No, I'll like give it to someone. But so I like to send. I was looking for solutions out there because I want it to be in the Rise 25 logo. I wanted our stuff, so I didn't want to send like someone else's brand to. Although I do that, like we do one-off like larger gifts, but like the campaigns and the thought was sending smaller, delicious treats multiple times a year over time. Like you
hmm.
mentioned, you get a card, you're like, oh, okay, cool, I read it. They're thinking of me, they took the time. But if someone's getting like treats in the mail, I love that. All right. Now we will for like people who are great partners and great champions, we will send one-off things, to people. But that dedicated campaign where it's okay, I already know without fail, this person's amazing. I want to send 3 things or 4 things a year to them every single year for 3 or 4 years. And I don't. I also want to keep it very affordable, right? So I want it in a smaller box. I want to be lighter so that I can actually send a lot of things over time.
Hmm.
But for those one-off things, sure. Like I've sent a big box of meat to people, like Omaha steaks. I've sent, I don't know if you've seen like the man crates, where you get a big wooden box that it comes with a crowbar and you literally have to like crowbar open the gift. Those are like wow factors.
Yeah.
Actually, someone sent one to me and I was like hating them because I was like bleeding because I got a splinter like trying to open this thing. So I called them and took a picture. Thanks for the gift. Like my thumb is bleeding, but it's still a fun thing to get.
Yeah.
And so there's customized things or someone's favorite sports team. If you look at social media, I found someone's favorite sports team and I got a picture of all the autographed people with a frame and sent it to them. Right. So just very highly curated. So you can go the very highly curated route or but at a minimum, like at a foundational level, I always like to have that foundation where, okay, I'm sending this campaign to people in my universe.
Hmm. Yeah. And I think that's a place where, one of the things about gift giving, all these things, they are placeholders for appreciation. So, while I like to get the brownies, the reason why you want to get the thank you note or the whatever is that is a placeholder for when I need this person, they'll be there. When I ask them for something, they'll deliver because they've already delivered. And that's one thing I found, because I do not have a team of people who send gifts for me, but I always try to front load networking because I know my ADHD brain, I'm gonna I mean, I'll have a meeting with someone and then I'll forget it the next day. So I try to deliver value in that meeting so that even if I forget them, they remember me. And I've actually told people up front, I'm like, yeah, so I'm going to make an introduction to 1 or 2 people who I think will benefit you. But if you like, I can use that energy to send you a nice thank you note instead. So, and they're like, nope, you can keep your thank you note. I'll take the introduction, because the thank you note's a placeholder for someday as this relationship develops, it may turn into an introduction or it may turn into value. So by delivering the value up front, they don't care if I forget them next day. They've already gotten value from me and they're going to remember me. But so that's why it can be effective depending on the nature of the relationship, is to give those and have someone do it. It's not disingenuous, because instead of spending your precious time and attention, you're spending your precious money to have someone go on their Facebook page and see what their favorite baseball team is and send that.
Yeah, and like if people want ideas, people always ask me, what are the ideas? You know, you can go to rise25.com/gift program and you can get some ideas there if you're interested in those. But yeah, I like to do is like that's a column for giving, like making intros, column for giving, having on the podcast, column giving, sending them a gift, column, you know, the thing, and all these things are amazing to do.
Yeah. So how did you first get into podcasts back in the ancient coal shoveling days?
Yeah, so like my background wouldn't lead you to believe I'm doing what I'm doing now, but I studied biochemistry at University of Wisconsin in Madison. I went on to chiropractic school. You mentioned chiropractors.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had my own practice for like 17 years. And you know, when I first started practicing, you know, they teach you how to be a chiropractor. They don't teach you anything about business or marketing. So what I was doing, I was going to conferences, right, about business and marketing. So we're talking like 2007, 8, and I'm going to these like internet marketing conferences, okay? And I stumbled across this thing, and it wasn't called podcasting. Most people didn't know what a podcast was or were calling it podcasting, but it was more like, okay, I'm publishing, you know, conversations online, right? And so that to me met all of my criteria, which is I'm just genuinely curious. I geek out on talking to other founders, entrepreneurs. It's from a
Mm-hmm.
professional development standpoint. I get to learn from them and obviously forming these great relationships. So I started doing that. And then it turned into a business on accident, because when I was doing that over time, because I've been doing about 2 episodes a week for over 15 years at this point. People were coming to me asking me to help them with, I'd like to do that too. And can you help me? And I'm like, okay, sure, that's fine. And then I started taking on more and more because I was busy treating patients. So I had to put a team together to help do all these things because I wanted to show up, have the conversation, and not do any, build the relationship and not have to do anything else. And so I had to build a team to help with all of the back end execution, production, and everything like that. So I just started saying yes to people, and then it grew and grew and grew. And then I met my business partner, John Corcoran, through podcasting. And we both had very similar philosophies of giving. And he was early on into podcasting, and we teamed up. And so that's how it just taking on more and more people. And it turned into a separate business on accident.
Hmm. So you just start doing it. And I think you brought up an interesting point that podcasting is the cheat code for mentorship.
For
That
everything.
Yeah, but like you'd be amazed. You wouldn't be amazed, but the audience would be amazed who you can get on a podcast. Like you'll meet something like there's no, that person won't get on a call with me, but they'll come on your podcast to be interviewed and tell you everything.
Well, I mean, like you said, it's because it benefits them and it doesn't evaporate into the ether,
Yeah.
because if you're recording it, they can use that as a marketing tool, right? And so recording it, it's an evergreen piece of content that they can use. I mean, I still have people watching stuff that I did 15 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so 100%, yeah, people like, yeah, let's do a get to know you call. Would you rather do that, or let's record it about you and your business,
Yep.
and we'll put it on YouTube, we'll put it across the podcast channels, we'll put it on the social media channels, and we'll promote what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's when I had Rob Goyette on my show, and we were talking about how I'm 200 something episodes in, not as many episodes in as you are, but I've never had someone ask me how big's your audience. I don't think I don't think once, maybe once or twice I've gotten that question.
That's a common question. You know, people will say, well, how do you get people to say yes? And aren't they asking you how many download subscribers? And I said, no. If you provide enough social proof
Hmm.
elements, so it's copywriting 101, right? If I, one of my favorite bars is IQ bars. Okay. And so one of my friends was like, oh, I love IQ bars. I'm like, oh, I should have him on the podcast. So I emailed him. Great guy. It was a good episode, but he responded within a day and said yes. And he goes, how'd you do that? I go, I just emailed him. But the truth was, I didn't just email him. The
Hmm.
truth was, I included social proof elements like, okay, by the way, do you want to come on? I've had the founder of RX Bar, Quest Nutrition, Jimmy Bar, and I named 5 other bar companies, and there was social proof.
Yeah.
I do find, Michael, there is one type of person that tends to ask for how many downloads and by the way, I don't even know. If you ask me, I have zero idea. I don't check that because I base what I do on relationships, not
Yeah.
off of down subscribers, but it's people who not all PR people,
Hmm.
but some PR people will be like, "What's your audience size?" And first of all, they reached out to me, okay? And then I'm like, and I'm just broadening. It's just saying they, but like not all PR people are like this, but they're the people who do ask. It categorizes into they are in PR.
Yeah.
Um, I know a lot of people in PR are amazing, and I communicate, and they send me great guests and everything like that. But there are a few that I'll respond, "Oh yeah, this sounds good," and then they'll turn around and go, "What's your audience?" I'm like, "You just asked me. You just asked me to for the person to come on," and
Yeah.
I'm like, honestly, I don't even know.
Yep.
Okay. So here's the people I've had on. Here's the type of people, the same people that I have on also listen. So if it's of interest, cool. If it's not, that's fine too. I totally get it.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually, yeah, my podcast had actually paused for a while because I focused more on virtual summits where it's, an interactive space, some big extrovert. Um, and and then when I got your team reached out to me and so I was like, oh, I think I want to start talking to people again. Sure. Let's bring them on. See what's up. And because that's the great thing about podcasts, you get to meet and connect with all kinds of interesting people. And one thing that Rob Goyette said is it doesn't matter how big the audience is because the one person who needs to hear me could be in your 9 listeners. And
Or it could be the person you're talking to
yeah,
right now. You know what I mean?
yes, yep,
That's it.
yeah, that's the huge thing. And actually, I think it was after that podcast. It was after that podcast interview, I became his affiliate, which then led to him getting some sales from my audience. So I was the person you need to reach. But even if it's the audience has 9 people and one of them is the one who's clicks the link and gets on the call and buys the $50,000 diamond VIP coaching program. You never know. And it could be 7 years later that someone's Googling, Google Dr. Jeremy Weisz, and it's not, the show with 10,000 downloads or 100,000 downloads. It's the Guy Who Knows a Guy podcast is the
It's
one they trip over.
usually that's the case. It's usually the niche shows, and I've even talked to people who they they say, okay, my book came out. I want to sell a bunch of books. And I'm like, honestly, the best podcasts are the niche ones that are small. They'll promote the episode, they'll care about the episode.
Mm-hmm.
Not even getting, I've had people tell me, I got on the Today Show and then I sold no books.
Yeah.
And I got on a niche podcast and sold 1,000 books. So
Yes.
it definitely is about the quality, not quantity.
Yeah. And I think with the Today Show, some of that is they don't care if you sell a book. They're just trying to fill air and you're in it. And I've talked to people who've gotten on the Today Show and the part where they're supposed to talk about their book got cut. They're like, oh, so well, thanks, we're out of time. Like, but the book. And but at the same time, the little podcaster, they want to make sure you're taken care of. They want to make sure you had a good experience. And I find that with virtual summits too, that so the summit model, for those who don't know, is that the speakers come on, they get exposure to the audience in exchange for promoting and building the audience. And so it's basically we build a shared audience together. That's what creates the event. And I have found literally no correlation between audience size and promotional results.
Mm, yeah.
I get people with no email address, no email list, no social media presence. They get dozens of registrations. And I've had people with 40,000 emails in their list. They're like, oh yeah, I know, I got a huge list, great audience. They can't get one. And it's because they don't care. The person who's got none, they got something to prove. They're like, okay, he's giving me a shot. He's put me on a stage. I got to do it. And where's the one with 40,000? Like, yeah, make sure we promote this or something. It's one of the 9 summits we're doing this month. See if you can fit it in the bottom of the email.
I find this also it comes from the guest perspective. Like if there's a really big, I find a lot of people I talk to, they're always trying to get the bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger guest.
Mm-hmm.
I find the same thing is true when I have a really big name or company guest, as opposed to someone who's not huge. That person is going to promote it, and it draws a lot of people, more people listening to it than this big name guest too,
Yep.
because they're going to care more. And so I find some people are like, no, they're always trying to just get the next biggest guess. I'm like, honestly, that's not gonna. I haven't personally experienced it building, people sharing it more. They're usually sharing it less.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if someone searches for that guest, if they're looking for, you get Gary Vaynerchuk on your podcast and they search for Gary Vaynerchuk, they're not finding your podcast. They're finding 900
Most
other pieces
likely
of
not,
content.
right?
But if you get Joe Schmo in your podcast and somebody meets Joe Schmo and be like, oh, Joe Schmo. Oh, an interview with him. Yeah. Because he's done 4 podcasts and you're one of them.
Or the
So,
only one. Yeah,
yep.
totally.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. So you help people to create their podcasts. And so who are the people that you most like working with to help them create the podcast for you?
Yeah, I mean, typically for us, we want to start off doing the strategy, right? And lay the foundation, and then we'll do the execution production. And most of the people we work with have a higher lifetime value of a client,
Mm-hmm.
right? So there's a lot of B2B, or they have a B2B component of their business. So we have a lot of different software companies,
Mm-hmm.
digital agencies, manufacturing companies. We do have some doctors and lawyers, but we're not so much focused on the B2C piece, but like more of the B2B piece. So like, you know, if a doctor, for example, an ear surgeon, or people who work with ear is a weird niche. We've had some weird niches, Michael. Like we've
Mm-hmm.
had pest control, but like you think about it, who are people who have ear issues or older? So we looked at, okay, retirement home communities. Like who are the more, like you were mentioning when you walk in a room, who's like kind of the referral strategic partner in the space that makes sense. So
Yep.
even the B2C companies, if there's a B2B referral component, that's really what we're zeroed in on for them.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then you handle all the production. So they're just doing the interviews and
Yeah, we have a dashboard. They go in. It should take someone because I created what I wanted, right?
Mhm.
I couldn't do any of this stuff, all right? So we created a dashboard. You drag the file in. It takes 2 minutes. You drag it in, you put the name of the guest in, submit it through our dashboard, and then we do everything else. Everything else means whatever that person wants us to do. It could be the video, put it at the podcast channels, a blog post. It could be a social media snippet. It could be posting on those social media and everything that's involved in getting it done and then promoting it afterwards.
okay. So and now do you edit the interviews or is the interviews kind of as it is? You clean it up and
Yeah, I mean, we have a section in there. Typically, I mean, in my mind, podcasts, I think you have the same sentiments, which is an authentic conversation. So
Mhm.
we don't recommend editing things out. Okay. Um, Now, if someone, you know, there's a part of the form where they go, "Hey, can you take out this thing? I said the person's name wrong or whatever they want." But
Mhm.
most of the time, I'm like, "Listen, I say stuff wrong all the time, and I just correct myself and keep going, right?"
Yep.
And I don't tell the team, "Hey, take this out." I just leave it in there. It's authentic. People make mistakes, so that's fine. So typically, yeah, we'll like do all the sound editing as far as smoothing it out, leveling it, and all that stuff. That's not my expertise. So like we
Mhm.
have better people on the team that know what they're doing with that. And then from the video piece, obviously just making it look pretty and putting a frame around it, putting the info, the guests on it and everything like that. But for the most part, we're not doing any heavy editing. I mean, there
Mhm.
are people who want advanced level stuff, but most of the time I'm recommending against it, even if they're going to pay us more money. I'm like, listen, I'm turning away more money from you, so maybe you should listen. I don't think we need to do this for you.
Yeah. Well, I think there's two types of podcasts. It's more than two, but in terms of the interview podcast, you've got this type, which is the casual conversation, and then you've got shows like How I Built This or Masters of Scale, though, where they take an interview, but then they really zhuzh it up, and it's got the music and it's got the multiple
You
interviews.
know,
And
everyone has probably a different opinion and take on it. I like the more authentic style. So even the ones that like you could tell that it was highly produced. They
Mhm.
went on, they put like some music or sound effects in the back. I mean, for me, that sometimes it's distracting for me. I
Yep.
just want to hear the conversation. I don't need like a train, sound when someone talks about a train. I mean, that's me personally. I'm only speaking for myself here. I
Mhm.
just want to hear the conversation. And
Yeah.
I can tell when stuff is highly edited. I'm like, what are they cutting out? What did I miss? Why? I mean, maybe I wanted to hear that other
Yeah.
piece. So, I mean, if you look at Joe Rogan's, right, it's like 2 or 3 hours. It's not edited at all.
Yep. Yeah, and I think it also depends. I think it's also one of those things where done really well, it works. Done poorly, you would have been better off not to try. Because I'm thinking about like shows like the ones I mentioned, which they're more of like a Netflix experience.
Totally.
It's you're not just listening to a conversation. You're like they're telling a story, they're building a story, and they reorient the order of the questions to form a narrative, and it's a whole thing.
Yeah.
But if it just feels like you're cutting things out and adding stuff just to stick stuff on and be like, could I just hear you guys talk? Could you stop messing with it and just have a conversation?
And they monetize stuff differently than a regular business too, right? It maybe if it's a media company, that's totally different, and they're monetizing off of sponsorship and
Yeah.
media things. But like someone is like you say, they have an HVAC business. Do
Mm-hmm.
they really need all of that stuff to get their point across?
Yeah.
And also I find I don't expect a podcast to be like an NBC TV show.
Right.
Okay. I expect it to be authentic conversation that is put up online.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just not my expectation.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. And I think that's the key thing is to understand what you're doing, who you are. So, you're not Joe Rogan, you're not Reed Hastings, you're not Guy Raz. You're an HVAC guy who's talking to some other people in the local community and building relationships and sharing that on the internet, which is a very different experience, very different. If the HVAC guy were to have that super produced podcast, people are like, I thought you did it. When do you have time to do air conditioners? Because you seem to be producing podcasts all day. I don't
I
know if I
just don't
trust you to
think if you
get in my house.
compare, it would even move the needle, right? Like,
Yeah.
is it better? People have the same experience or outcome, in that sense of, okay, try to put everything with our clients through an ROI filter. Like, is this
Mhm.
more likely to produce you ROI or not? And if not, just don't do it. Or at least you're aware of it if you are doing it,
Yeah.
right? So that's fine. Just know this extra. I was talking to someone like, hey, we need to like chop up this and do like 5 clips on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. And I'm like, you have 32 followers. Okay, so maybe let's just do one and you can put it across different channels, but I don't think you need five, and I don't think you need to post like 2 times a day.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That's. And I think so. You see other people do it, and so you think, well, they're doing it. Be like, yeah, but they're them, and you're you, and they're not.
You
They're
also
not
don't
in
know
your
what
peer.
people are just spinning their wheels, not getting results on.
Yep.
And I'm like, listen, I went back to, I'm telling you not to spend more money with us. So like,
Yeah.
I just don't think you need it.
Yeah. No, that's. So for anyone out there who's in the business space, what are some of those common mistakes you're seeing right now, either podcasting or in general, in this post-pandemic mid-20s world?
I mean, for me, I'll talk general and then get more specific, but it goes back to what we were talking about the Dream 200, which is niche.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And um, I find I'm talking to a lot of businesses and they think they're talking about a niche, but it's just too broad,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I said, B2B is broad.
Yeah.
But if I go, okay, B2B software companies that have over 15 like I can get more and more segmented and niche, but A lot of times people think everyone with a spine is their target audience, but it's probably, I know this genre intimately. It's most likely someone that's like over 50 who has back pain, that is active, that wants to be active, that, has kids, maybe grandkids at 60. You know what I mean? Like they have things that different characteristics. Or I got a lot of patients from like CrossFit gyms because they want to stay active, and usually the older side of people who are doing CrossFit, and they want to keep active, and if you're going to work out hard, you're going to get injured. It's just going to be wear and tear. So just being specific with a niche and thinking about the niche, and then looking at, if someone's like, well, I'm not sure, the things that we think about are, one, who do you love working with? Who do you get the best results for? And then who's profitable, right? And if all three of those things are not there, you're in trouble. Like if you're like, oh, I
Mhm.
love working with them, I get good results, but if you're not profitable, that's an issue,
Yeah.
right? So I look at those three things from the niche perspective, and then going down, to the what we do, which is more like just building a predictable relationships and referral and collaboration partners. Um, when I have someone on my podcast, I'm not actually looking to get a client. I'm actually not looking to get a referral partner. What I'm looking for is to help them get a client or help them get a referral partner,
Hmm.
because that really deepens the relationship. So think of just going in with a giving mindset. And I'm not saying people do or don't do this. This is the way I think about it.
Yep.
Going in, how can I help them? And so when people know when I'm calling them or I'm emailing them, it's because I'm trying to help. It's not to try and get anything. So that's on that piece. On the media piece, really, I find people focus on the wrong things, right? And we talked about those already, which is
Yeah.
like they're asking, what tech do I use? How do I get download subscribers, instead of mapping out the Dream 200 and then finding out how to give to them, and just not trying to be a perfectionist around every detail, because the first couple you do are going to suck, or they'll at least suck compared to your hundredth or thousandth one. So
Hmm.
I tell people, again, it's some people apply what they do in their career to the podcast. So like if it's a doctor who's super detailed, and if they mess up some in a surgery, they mess up. But like that's not, and they apply the same mentality to the podcast. I'm like, you have to understand it's not the same,
Yep.
right? If you mess up, you're fine. Like no one's gonna die.
Hmm.
And so just kind of communicating that perfectionist dilemma, I guess you
Yeah.
could say.
Well, and that's a great point with technology. I remember when I started this podcast, I was doing it. Yeah, I think I started 7 years ago or so. Yeah, I was using Zencaster because it would store the audio locally and then upload it, and I could balance it properly. And I remember at one point being like, I don't need Zencaster anymore. Zoom does everything Zencaster does, or at least close enough to it to fix it. Like, so I don't need to spend $80 a month for Zencaster anymore. And yeah, my microphone's $30, the camera's $15. Like everything is so cheap and accessible now. Technology
People
really
sometimes,
available.
Michael, love buying stuff though. Like they'll come to me and they're like, Jeremy, I'm ready. I'm like, oh, what do you mean you're ready? Like, I just bought like $6,000 worth of equipment and a teleprompter. I'm like, you really just need $100 mic
Yeah.
and Zoom or whatever. But people like buying. I'm like, whatever. I go, more power to them if they want I go, they want all that fun equipment,
Yeah.
go for it. But
What
you
what
don't
I
need it.
what I find interesting with microphones is for some people, cheaper microphones are better. Like watching you kind of moving back and forth. And the really expensive microphones, if you don't adjust them properly, have a very narrow hotspot.
Totally.
And so you hear them
Yes.
fade in and out as they're talking. They get louder and then they get quieter and they get louder and then they get quiet because they don't realize where the hotspot in their $300 microphone is. Whereas my
Yeah.
$30 microphone, I can go over here, I can back up, I can go to the side. It picks me up wherever
You're
because
you're
it's not that
exactly right.
precise.
I was on with someone the other day, and they're like, "What mic should I get?" And I'm like, I'm like, I'm not going to recommend the Blue Yeti because you do have to, if it's on a certain setting, you do have to be talking to the front of it. I'm like, there's no way they're going to remember to talk in this. So I'm like, get a little less expensive one that
Hmm.
if they move around, they don't have to identify that. You're 100% right.
Yep. Yeah, that's the key thing. But yeah, I love your point. It always comes back to ROI. It comes back to, Stephen Covey, begin with the end in mind. Why are you doing it? And stay focused on that, which is a really crucial thing. And yeah, Kimberly Crow says, if you're not embarrassed by your first episode, you waited too long to start. So
100%.
yeah, the first episode will always be. I think when transferring my podcast, the first 8 episodes somehow didn't make it over, which means episode 9 is the first episode you can find on my podcast. uh, yeah, I remember back then I recorded on my phone, like the microphone on my phone, and it picked up every creak of the chair in the room, and it sounded like someone was doing carpentry in the room we were in. And Zoom now has noise cancellation. So even now, like I could have a truck. There's an air conditioner running. You can't hear. There's all this stuff. Zoom just cancels right out, and technology does so much for us. We're coming to the end of our time, but this has been really great, and I'm glad we had the chance to connect. I'm glad your team reached out. So what are the things you most want people to know, possibly including how they get in touch with you?
I mean, I think, first of all, I just think of how do you give to other people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the mentality. Just going into any conversation, social media interaction, whatever it is. And then if you have, I have free episodes, everything's free. If you have people, if you go to inspiredinsider.com, if you search podcast in the search bar, we have try to answer every possible question we've gotten just to be helpful. Like obviously if people want to go to the next level, they can contact us, but if they just want to learn more, they can go and search those episodes. Like, how do I launch a podcast? What technology and software I mean, all those questions we've answered.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, that's it. If you have questions, you can go to inspiredinsider.com. You can go to rise25.com. You can connect with me. I'm very active on LinkedIn. So it's Jeremy Weisz, Weisz. You can feel free to message me there. Just say, I do respond to ones that leave a personalized connection request. So just say, Michael is the best, and the guy who knows a guy is the best. And so I'll know to accept it. So that's it.
All right. I definitely like the call to action of say I'm the best. That is an that's excellent call to action in any setting. I love it. All right. Well, this has been great. It's been great to learn these concepts and kind of go over these ideas and talk shop about podcasts with someone has a little more experience than I do. By which I mean a lot. So this has been great, and thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks, everyone.